name is Evo. Hello, everyone. My name is Evo Heyning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We are going to be starting a workshop that I have been uh, forming for the last few months, and this is going to be the start and kickoff of our cohort for the fall. Now, this cohort will include some collaborative sessions as well as a handful of sessions where we're going to be going into deep inquiry about how to build your tools, how to be effective in your creative work, whether that's generative work or otherwise. So we're going to start this video over again. And this is going to give you just a little bit of a sample of the kinds of things we're going to be covering, both in the cohort, but especially today as we get started. So great to meet you all. Again, my name is Evo Heyning. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a sample here of the kinds of things that I've been working on and using generative media to iterate and work on content design. So what you'll be seeing in these particular shots are mostly generated using tools such as numerous brain machines. And we're going to talk about a wide variety of generative tools and how they complement your creativity without stealing anything from you in the process, right? How to hold your own creative vision, how to keep your soul or artistic spirit while exploring these kinds of tools. So whether your interest is in world building, 3D design, we're going to talk about building and construction today. We're going to talk in future sessions about LLMs and how to be more effective in your prompt craft. We are also going to talk about how to use tools effectively in a number of verticals. That includes AR, VR, XR, that includes building and all of the elements related to that. So for today's session, please feel free to use the chat, and I will be basically giving you a very brief introduction to the kinds of things we're going to be working on together. So again, hi, my name is Evo Heyning. I am CEO at Realitycraft. I am also Vice President at XR Guild. Some of the slides you're going to be seeing are from a previous session that we did at XR Guild, which was an ethical inquiry focus. So I want you in these kinds of sessions to be thinking about your big questions. And some of those are questions to take back to your teams. Some of you have your teams on today, but please let me know in the chat if you can see me, number one. Thank you for letting me know that the audio was too loud on that video. We don't have to do that in the future, but hopefully the ducking is appropriate now so that you can hear me effectively. So we're going to be talking about tools and methods and process, but we're also going to be talking about some of these big questions. And these big questions do drive our creative endeavors, whether you're thinking about something that is tactile, something that is to be created or physically built, something that's only digital, an immersive world, or anything like that. The questions that we tackle are quite similar. So let's see, I think my screen sharing got paused there, so let's see if it's going back. What is the most beneficial way to design and develop our technologies? These are the kinds of questions we're going to be exploring together, and today we're going to take a look at one particular technology for world building and design called Blockade Labs. So this is something that you can use for free on the web. Blockade Labs is a wonderful company led by a great woman, and we're going to look at just a few of the tools that we use in world building and design today. So the kinds of questions that we need to be asking while we're creating are going to change. Obviously, situations change, AI companies change, where our data needs to live might need to change. And you're constantly, if you're thinking about creating worlds, you're thinking about, is my use of technology and my project development appropriate? Is it designed for the safety and privacy of the people who are going to use it? If it's an XR world, are you keeping data that maybe you shouldn't be keeping that might compromise the people using it? If you are creating something in the physical world, is using generative media the right tool in order to get the correct and most informative answers that you need in order to build that thing effectively? So stopping and making time for ethics and design inquiry, and making sure that our process isn't just jump started with a lot of cool tools, but is also thinking carefully about how we use those tools and technologies together. So in the coming cohort, we're going to be covering a wide variety of topics on world building and design. That includes creating immersive realities, and those immersive worlds can live on the web or in AR, VR, XR apps and things like that. We're going to talk about understanding why and how we create in this way, where generative media meets creativity and where it can support creativity. We're also going to talk about the roadblocks and some of the challenges and the thornier issues, a topic there. Inquiry into when to engage, and that includes when to maybe pick up a new tool or maybe when to leave a new tool, how to decide on the right tools for you, and ethical design and development. Now that includes working with your team effectively to ask these questions. Now, I work with the team at XR Guild to develop a ethical design framework, and this is something that we will be sharing more. We did a bit of this in our last conversation together, and we talked a little bit about the principles that we adhere to when we're creating something. And this is true when we're creating any form of reality, because if you're creating a reality, you are creating something that people can live in. And that is something that is a very powerful way of creating. It is a unique way to touch people's lives. And so we want to touch people's lives in ways that hopefully improve mutual tolerance and respect, that respect freedom, but also privacy, that these are inseparable human rights. We want to increase the dialogue with other humans in ways that are appropriate and that include accessibility. They also need to be thinking, and all of you in creative work need to be thinking about whether any individual, company, or country owns your work, owns the metaverse, owns these immersive worlds that might be built. So we are going to talk about AR, VR, XR. We're also going to talk about the physical world and world building and why it's important to make sure that we are continually opening up how we do this work. Because when we create a reality, we need to take responsibility for it too. You know, this is something that is controversial, but maybe should be discussed more frequently before things are released into the world. When we create a reality, we need to take responsibility for it too. If generating something and then editing it is a creative process, and this is the premise we're working with here in creative work. If generating something and then editing it is part of a creative process, a part of the process of world building, are you, the creator, willing to take responsibility for what is generated? And if you're not, is that the right tool for you? If you're generating something that feels inappropriate or not congruent to your work, why are you using that tool? And so these are the kinds of conversations we have in ethical inquiry. We talk about what these sort of responsibilities are to each other and to the greater whole, to society. And the big questions that we're asking: how can we design authentically beautiful and compelling technologies while also maintaining a deep respect for the people who create culture and our sense of a shared reality? Now, that means creating respect for artists, creating respect for other people's intellectual property. How can we be good to each other in this creative and generative and immersive process? Understanding that we are constantly stepping on people's toes, that the concept of generative media steps on artists' toes. And so how do we begin to reconcile that with our own creative vision and being able to bring that vision to life? So if these are the inquiries that you're interested in, myself and Amy Lemire here are featured in a video series from Gatherverse where we talk about these things. And you're welcome at XR Guild if you are working in the AR, VR, XR industries and you're trying to think about how to pull apart some of these cultural issues related to world building, because many of our products also create worlds and cultures. So you need to be thinking about the culture that you're creating every time you open that tool up. Every time you go in to build a 3D world in Unity or Play Canvas or Unreal, think about the product at the end of the day. What is that product going to put out into the world? What is it inviting people into? Every product has negatives and positives, and if you're successful, the positives are going to greatly outweigh the negatives. So how do we design upfront to maximize the positives and ensure that they're greatly helping people and that the negative ramifications of our technologies aren't going to harm or hurt them, right? So reduce harm, create joy, create beauty? How do we get to the place where we know all of these things are working together, right? And we know why that matters. It matters because bias. It matters because there are challenges politically in the world that we may not feel congruent with, right? And so safety and security cannot be necessarily conflated with just giving over all of our data. Maybe that is incongruent for the group and people that you are designing for, right? So user-centered design thinking is one of those ways that people create a process for this, thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion when you're building a product and how is it going to reach them? And also what are the unintended consequences? Because these are things that we constantly have to be pulling apart when we are building a new world. So concept design. Thank you for being a part of that reminder of why these inquiries matter before we jump into tools. Because if you're thinking about concept design of world building, then we need to be thinking about how do we open up this inquiry together. So feel free to use the chat here and leave your questions. I would love to hear your big questions at this point and the kinds of things that you and your teams and your creators that you work with are sitting with. So we want to think about how to support each other in our creative work. Wouldn't it be great if everyone had more support in their roles to make the most ethical choices? Now, these are important questions to ask because sometimes our choices are the difference between resiliency and being able to have a new school or a new home. This is footage I shot recently where I'm using physical 360 footage of the real world to work on building and planning for a community that is working on building new housing and a new school. So this video will serve as part of a series that will then help us with the actual building plan. Now, how these technologies go from video back to AI and then to world building is something that we're going to explore in this workshop in the cohort for the next 7 weeks, because I know some of you are thinking about how that might apply to your place, whether that's Florida or Hawaii or someplace where there is an opportunity to build something new. Now, I've been focused on growing homes, biogenic homes, natural building methods. This includes things like wood and hempcrete, materials that can be grown relatively locally. In Hawaii, that might include things like bamboo as well. But figuring out how we can use the local materials available to us, including very old materials and old methods. I just got back from Norway where I was studying 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th 12th to 15th century building methods, specifically to figure out where we can unlock some of those efficiencies and ways of working for our homes today. So while we're not going to have time to dive into all of this for today's little 30-minute intro, I want you to be thinking about how generative media, the kinds of things that you saw in the first video, designing a house that isn't something that can be built, might come together with the kinds of things that are absolutely designed to be built, right? This is using Autodesk's construction suite, Autodesk Construction Cloud Mobile, being able to begin the process of going from vision all the way to reality on a building project. Now, that's something that most tools are not currently designed to do, right? We don't have construction tools that have great prompt generators yet, but we might see that in the future. We are starting to see the marriage of generative and creative tools with other verticals. Now, construction and digital twins requires a great deal of engineering and know-how, other fields like healthcare as well, but we are starting to see these things coming together, right? So that LLMs can be used to support the medical industry as long as they're accurate. And construction tools could potentially make use of APIs from video and other methods as long as they are accurate, right? And so when we're thinking about unpacking some of the bigger software challenges in engineering, it's things like quantification, getting a good materials list together for a house to be built after a hurricane, because the footage you just saw in North Carolina was shot a week after Hurricane Helene in an area where building housing fast matters. And we can reduce the timelines in how we do these things using our generative media tools so that these places that are currently available for housing can be utilized faster. So That was a lot in the last 5 minutes, and I want to go ahead and take some of your questions and take a look at the kinds of inquiries that you are asking yourselves. So please feel free to jump in on the chat if that's something that you'd like to do. And then we're going to take a look at just a moment at Skybox. And Skybox is quite fun. I'm enjoying this as a tool. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I think we can go to the other tool for this. And I wanted to make sure I take your questions. The audio from the video is a bit too high. Yes, I hear that, and I'm so sorry. We're going to take a look at Skybox in my browser because Skybox from Blockade Labs is a fun way to begin the world building process and kind of explore whether it's right for you. So I think you saw in that last piece, I had a prompt up, and the picture didn't necessarily match the prompt, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure we're screen shared over to Skybox. And we'll keep the sound a little more balanced from here on out. So Skybox from Blockade Labs, if you go to blockadelabs.com, you will be given two different choices. Blendbox uses a number of other 3D tools, right? So you can log in with your Google, Discord, Magic Links, and that sort of thing. And Blendbox is designed to do the 2D, 3D art asset development, whereas Skybox is designed to do a Skybox, a 360 immersive asset. So what I prompted here, a mountain lake, distant sunset, light clouds in the sky. It doesn't understand how to make a home out of stone. So it skipped that part of the prompt. But you can see here that the file that I can then download is specifically the nature scene. Now, with Skybox, if you haven't explored it much, there are many different models that you can choose from. Now, I chose, I think it's M3 cinematic realism here. But there are a number of different methods where you can go from something photoreal. And so we can try the exact same prompt in a different method. I like to go ahead and download. You get a couple of different types of formats. If you want to download, I can download in landscape video. I can also download in an rectangular image, which is something that I might be able to pull into another tool if I'm building a WebXR experience or if I'm building something in Unity. So take a look at those different meshes and the ways in which you can bring those in. And I'm going to go ahead and admit someone else who's joining us now. All right. So I thank you for your questions and hello, welcome. I just wanted to let you know that we are recording currently and we are currently looking at Skybox. So Skybox will give you a couple of different export options. I'm going to go ahead and regenerate so you can see this and how it works. You can definitely describe the sky. This is something that's important when you're thinking about trying to create a specific mood. Now, this might work well for a meditation retreat in an immersive space. You might be trying to do something that's more historically accurate. With these tools, you can go in and edit as well. So using Blendbox with Skybox, you can get a handful of certain benefits from combining the two. So Blendbox, you log in and you tell it which website you want to be using. And then with a Skybox, you can see what I'm getting again is an equirectangular 360 image, right? So it tells me that this is watermarked until I pay for it. Like many of these tools, they are going to be free for a little bit and then not free anymore. So use your tools wisely, understand that there's a credit system with many of these cloud-based image generators. This one in particular is great for immersive world building if you're trying to see like a setting that's unusual. Now, I don't know what it was trying to do here. I'm guessing it's trying to do the crystalline prompt piece of my thing. I've really confused it a little bit with this prompt. It could not figure out labradorite, and it put quartz in a way that makes it look like a reflected lake. So your mileage may vary in terms of the architectures working well. So you can download your Skybox in more than 10 available formats. This is, again, a great way to try and visualize something if you're getting started on a project. The edit tool here is coming soon, but I can tell you a little bit about that. I have tested some of their other methods in the past. You can also upload an image and remix it. So this is a really fun way to take your existing art and bring it into a new world. Whether this can be used for dome projection, I would say, yes, you're going to want to take this out and then put it into something like Unreal Engine if you're going to a dome typically, or to a tool that's going to manage with your motion graphics, right? So this would be a backdrop that you could put motion graphics on top of. Or this could be the background to an XR world that you are releasing in something like Engage or Spatial or Frame VR, any of those web worlds that would give you an immersive environment. Now, I use quite a few of them. I would say tools like Frame or Spatial or Nowhere are all great places to take one of these images and then make it the kind of world you're looking for. If you're trying to think about a healing meditation experience for medical or healthcare, for example, your creative goals are going to be very different than the kinds of creative goals you're going to have if you're trying to do something in building and rebuilding, for example, your example, Jerry, in Hawaii. So looking into world building for reconstruction, visions of Hawaii past and future, I would recommend go ahead and try the remix tool with some of your existing imagery and really refine your prompt. Think about not just, what you want your sky to look like and how to make that compelling, but really give it as much information as you feel is appropriate to the things that you want to build. Let it go ahead and play with whether that's residential housing in the style of something. I would encourage you to use your own images as much as possible and not necessarily other people's artwork. That's an ethical choice that I personally make. I would encourage you to, choose your tools and your methods wisely when it comes to using your own images as much as possible. So yes, in the extended workshops, we're going to go into tools and methods with Skybox and Blendbox. We are also going to be covering a wide variety of other tools and methods. We're going to be taking time with large language models, specifically with relation to projects like production, building and management, the physical world as well as the digital world. So I want you thinking about large language models as being able to support and give you structure and infrastructure and organizational structure. So we're going to cover that in one of those workshops. We're also going to be covering world building from this method, right? So thinking about the digital world, thinking about all of those immersive, beautiful places that you can create, even as an example of the world that you want to create in the physical world. So you might be using this simulation to go get a grant to build something in the physical space. So I want you to think about all of that. And yes, we're also going to dive into media production. And some of those topics will include the ethics of using historic artwork, working with your historic societies, working with museums, how to attribute that information if you are using that in production so that you are keeping, again, your creative voice and your attributions, keeping your attributions and your own creative voice appropriately developed, not just in the bottom of the screen when you let people know that something is simulated, but also in your credits and in your collaborative flow, right? So how do you build those partnerships? How do you put it in the contract? We're going to have a conversation about all of those things. And I want to encourage you to bring your concrete examples if that's something that you are considering, because whether you are thinking about a production where you are using historic artifacts as part of your world building, this is something I specialize in. I make splats and big splats sometimes of physical places, but also of antiques and art objects that aren't necessarily found inside our existing models. So many of us use advanced tools like NVIDIA, not just for AI, but for omniverse, digital twins. We're going to have a conversation about simulation and also about reality and where those places meet not just in our data, but also in our agreements and in our contracts, because all of those things come together in the information we share and who we choose to share it with. So all of that is relevant, and bring your questions. We're going to be starting the larger cohort in just a few days on Maven. And I apologize, I do need to make sure that I bring up that page for us. And it's creators for this one. For those of you who have not signed up yet, I wanted to give you one more chance. As you can see, we're starting in a week. So you have 7 days left to enroll. This cohort is going to take us through right before Christmas. So if you are curious about the ways in which these elements can work together with your own creative vision, maybe you are trying to build something out, you're trying to get a project funded, you're trying to work together to make a virtual art museum or some sort of exhibition that brings together different visions. I want you to be thinking about these kinds of questions, and then this is what you will be receiving as a part of that workshop. Groups are welcome, and I wanted to let you know that if you are signing up and you have a group in the room with you, that is fine. Split the cost, and $3.99 becomes a lot easier to do for some people. So I want you to encourage you to make this as part of your local group. So we have just about 5 minutes left here. These are the kinds of things we're going to be covering. Language of prompt craft. I wrote a book on this if you'd like to dive deeper into that. I have not released the second version yet, but I will be releasing some pieces of the second version for this workshop starting on November 18th, 1 week from now. Basically, what we're going to be doing is every week diving into interactive sessions that are going to combine how we choose the tools with the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about when we are publishing anything, whether it's digital or physical. So some of that's going to be video storytelling, multimodal. Some of that's going to be organizing around workflows. And if you're curious and concerned that the schedule doesn't work for you, we can always figure out how to flex and flow with your team. So I also do workshops where I will meet with people in small groups or one-on-one. So I wanted to let you know that that is also an option, and that anything that you need, please feel free to reach out to me, because those are all opportunities for us to figure out how we can collaborate better together. So I wanted to just go ahead, and we're going to bring it all back together here. In the world building workshop, we are going to be focusing on some of those edge methods that you might see on GitHub, or you might see in other tech media. Super splats and play canvas is something that I'm currently testing, and that's something that I'm welcome all of you to test as well with me. So I use the Luma app. I also use Polycam. I've used a couple of tools for capturing Gaussian splats, and then figuring out how to work with those images in your other designs, thinking about if you're trying to create something that will simulate a new world, whether that's digital or physical. So we're going to talk about all of those elements of immersive world creation, as well as the prompt craft, the choosing of your tools and your methods. So let me go ahead and make sure we don't have too much volume on this video, because I know that some of you were noticing the audio. Thank you for reaching out and letting me know where things are working for you on Zoom. While we will be doing these workshops on Zoom, I will not be having a lot of finished video in the future. So we will be keeping it generally to this kind of interaction method. If you need a different interaction method, or if you need me to come and work with you, that is also an option. And I want you to feel free to reach out. I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in here, and I will go ahead and put the URL in there as well for us, so that we all have it together. On Maven, that I am listed as Realitycraft, and it is Realitycraft creators is this particular group. So let me go ahead and make sure you have that URL as well. Now, if you are reaching out to me on most websites, you will find me at Amoration. That is my social media handle. I don't use social media much anymore, so I'm going to encourage you to just reach out to me directly. If you have any sort of inquiries, you are also welcome to reach out on LinkedIn. And I do work with teams, including filmmakers, PBS stations, art groups, a museum that is being built currently. There's a number of projects where this might dovetail with the kinds of things that you are trying to create. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video now, but if you need to reach out to me, please feel free to do so. And I would encourage you to go ahead and sign up for the workshop. Again, that is at Realitycraft. Let's get that right. Realitycraft/creators. Let's make sure you can see that fully. Generative creativity, making creator-centered media with AI tools. You are welcome to sign up. We will be getting started next week. And thank you so much. I'm Evo Heyning, and I hope you have a great day. I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording now. All right, we have 5 minutes left here. I can take any questions about the workshop as well, but that cuts our recording. So that way we are now on our private space. And I see that there's already a typo that I did not see before. That's not great. Are there any other questions before we cut off today?
I'm excited for this very timely class for me. I'm doing a couple of different generative AI things, and this whole Visions of Hawaii started out as Visions of Lahaina, and that's going to be the initial target of it. Very culturally sensitive. With all the differences going on over here and the worries about things in the future and the trauma that last year created, definitely a lot of the ethics and so forth are definitely in our view. Looking forward to it. The 8 a.m. Hawaii time is going to be an interesting switch for me. You're starting most of the workshops at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
If we need to move that, we can figure that out right now, but I want to make sure that we make that determination with all the people who signed up. So I will be in touch with you, and we might be able to move that to a later time. Basically just delivering the workshop twice in the same day. So let me think through it, because I might just have you in your own cohort and then do a timed earlier cohort, especially if I have European folks who want to join us as well.
Right. That adds the whole confusion of things. I hope it winds up being successful for you. It's an exciting series of topics, and
right. Well, I think
the
we might be able to do the later one and focus all of our building and construction folks in the same cohort, because we have some folks in Wisconsin, Florida, and North Carolina who are not here today, who are all going through the rebuilding process after disaster. So that particular use case might be an appropriate cohort on its own. And then we talk about some of those affordances of using like Autodesk Construction Cloud to hopefully expedite with your permit offices, for example.
that would be very interesting. Yeah, the whole community engagement for looking at what the future is going to be is a big one for us here, as well as looking back into the past. And that does come together because in rebuilding Lahaina, there's a big push to recognize the old historic Hawaii, in particular the early kingdom and pre-kingdom days, especially in Lahaina, now that everything has been removed and they maybe cannot rebuild on some of that land for the special management area SMA rules.
Yes.
Also because of all the burial sites in the area, there are significant restrictions.
Yeah.
But we can
This
do
is
a
North
virtual
Carolina,
restriction.
similar, it sounds like. Yeah. I want to make sure, are there any other questions from it's great to see some of you. Hi, for those of you I don't know well. If you have any other questions, what we're going to be covering in the cohort is going to go across all different multimodal needs and use cases.
Hi, my name is Pamela, and I apologize for my tardy attendance.
You're fine.
I totally couldn't read my notes and forgot. And I want to ask you a question that's not related to anything about anything that's being discussed, but I'm completely brand new to many things here that are being discussed, and I want to know how I don't like having my face completely not visible, but I really like how you have whatever thing that makes your face.
It's just sunlight. I'm
Really?
washed out from sunlight today. Yeah, I've got really just flooded with sunlight, and that combined with the virtual filters makes me look super washed out. So yeah.
So some kind of virtual filter can make it look like there's sunshine on your face. Because
Yeah.
that makes you muted a little bit. And I wanted to be able to do that because I'm on Zoom every day, a couple times a day, and I need to not be invisible, but not completely visible.
Understood.
And
Understood.
I don't know
And
where to
this is the
get
same reason why I use my virtual videos this way. So we might get cut off soon, by the way. I think Zoom has a limit and I think we're about to be shut off. So please email me. But if you can sign up for the workshop, great. And if not, if you want a private workshop, I'm happy to show you some specific things in a one-on-one session too.
Thank you for availability, and thank you,
Of
Jerry,
course,
for
it's nice to meet you. And